Attention, duped masses!
You're listening to Media Monarchy with James Evan Pilato.
Malware power, Sirius steak, and apple sauced. Plus this day in history with the Pentagon Papers and our Song of the Day by Tuxedo on your Morning Monarchy for June 13th, 2017. I'm James Evan Pilato from MediaMonarchy.com. Welcome to wherever you are for another hour-long blast of listener-supported media brought to you by you. Streaming live, as always, from the Peak Portland studios up here in Portland, Oregon. Streaming live at MediaMonarchy.com/listen. Morning Monarchy, 9 a.m. Glad you're here. Appreciate you. We are brought to you by you and all our supporters. And yes, as our buddy Marcus just asked a few minutes ago on the chat, and we got the chat going on Discord. Love to see you join us over there. Still having server woes? Yes, indeed, I am. I'm becoming increasingly unhappy with my server place. After screwing around for a couple hours yesterday on the tech chat support, I was basically told, sorry, pal. We don't have an ETA when we're going to fix our problems with your website. So meanwhile, I've got other companies now tweeting at me going, hey, you unhappy with your server? DM us. And I may very well. I don't want to make, as is good advice, generally in everything, not just annoying computer things. Don't make hasty decisions out of anger. I don't want to hurry up and jump to some other thing just out of being pissed off. Ideally, what I would love, one, is if we just hosted our own server. That's like everything. I mean, it comes down, this is the fundamentals of all of it. I want the box that runs Media Monarchy to live in my studio. I want to hold it in my hands. And, you know, like on the IT crowd, they're like, here, Jen, it's the internet. I want to hold the internet in my studio. And if we can't make that happen, good grief, we would love to get hosted angel endorser kind of server space. I know, we're not as big as Corbett Report, but maybe if somebody out there has a couple acres of server space, they could loan us. So because server woes, I'm also having email woes. So I asked them, so if my email's not going to work, how am I going to know when my shit's working again? They kind of went around in a circle on that one. But what I noticed when I checked into Patreon, because I'm not getting my james@MediaMonarchy.com emails, so you can the backup email, MediaMonarchy@gmail.com. That's the oldie original. I logged into Patreon to discover, hey, I've got like 5 new patrons in the last several days, but I didn't know about it. So apologies for not thanking you sooner, latest patrons like Candide S, Susan G, Josh S, Stefan A, and Evie. A huge thanks to all of you for becoming our latest patrons at patreon.com/MediaMonarchy. That's what keeps us going. That's what keeps us growing, and that's what keeps us independent. We've been independent, non-commercial alternative media since September 11th, 2005. And at MediaMonarchy.com/support, you got all the other stuff. Patreon, PayPal, snail mail, Bitcoin. As I like to say, if you can give a little, I can give a lot. A huge thanks to the Truth Seeker app, who have not been getting the Morning Monarchy for about a week now, which, again, that's what I've been trying to tell the hosting company. You know, you're starting to affect my livelihood here. But we'll keep our spirits up, as I try and generally do, and I think hopefully that's what makes this show resonate with people, is I'm not yelling and screaming at you and freaking out and saying we're all going to die. Hopefully we can have a fear-free look at the news and what's really going on in the world. So with these server woes, I don't know if they're working for the NSA. I've lost my train of thought. I appreciate you guys being in the chat. We've got a Discord chat running, we got the stream running, and it is Tuesday. It's your Morning Monarchy, Tuesday style. That means Tech Tuesday, Cyberspace War, hashtag Cyberspace War. You can find all the stories that we're going to talk about here, in addition to all the other tons of stories that we don't make the cut. Thanks, Marcus. I was going to give thanks to RadioConfluence.com. So because the Morning Monarchy isn't getting served out through the podcast, through the feed style, RadioConfluence.com has been simulcasting and rebroadcasting all your Media Monarchy broadcasts. Huge thanks to them. Huge thanks to them. So many plates to spin. And as I told you yesterday, we are bachelor style again this week. Cassie's out of town on business. Fortunately, not a family emergency, just some fun AV-related business. She's in America's Wang. And the hilarious part, she left Portland to go to Orlando to discover nothing but rain. Womp womp. Hey, let's glance at the breaking lamestream news before we dive into our Tech Tuesday news. Trump's friend, Christopher Ruddy, says president considering firing Mueller, at which point the fake left will completely lose their minds. They'll have steam out of their ears and poop out of their pants. And we are in a hilarious, like this is just, it is Trollmerica. Dennis Rodman back in North Korea. He's just there to open a door. Alex Jones on NBC, and now the firestorm. As it all comes back to Sandy Hook. Again, I've said this about a lot of ways, a lot of things. I'm sick of being told who to praise and who to hate. I can make those decisions for myself, thank you very much. Oh, hate them if you want. But the Warriors are what every team should hope to be. I believe there was some big shooty hoops action. Georgia releases names of slain prison guards. Latest on the killing of 2 prison guards and escape of 2 inmates during a bus transport in Georgia. And, of course, the legal fight over Trump's travel ban and tweeting criticism. And we'll get to tweeting criticism in just a few minutes on this Cyberspace War episode. And again, about an hour before showtime, we tweet out the stories that we are going to talk about. So if you are listening live, if you're in the position, maybe at your cube that you can follow along, it's on the tweets. Let's begin as we've been doing more and more often. And hell, maybe that's what I should do every day. Just start with local news. But it is a tech angle on local news. Oregon was given an extension last year to bring its driver's licenses up to federal security standards. That extension expired a week ago, last Tuesday. But Oregon ain't worried. Back in 2009, Oregon lawmakers decided not to comply with Real ID Act unless federal funds paid for it. Now, isn't it funny how cities like to pick and choose which federal things they like to take the filthy lucre for, and other things they actually act like they have some spine and stand up? We're going to be a sanctuary city and not follow federal laws. Ooh, can we get all that money? Because we need it. Like Governor Jerry Brown in California, Uber Alice. So in 2009, Oregon lawmakers decided not to comply with Real ID unless the feds paid for it. That standoff has lasted for 8 years now. But David House with the Oregon DMV says a bill in Salem, which is our capital, would allow Oregonians to pay $20 extra for a new federally accepted license so they can board awesome planes and get into awesome federal facilities, because those things are so much fun to do. But even if this bill doesn't pass through the legislature, there's no immediate effect. We won't see the enforcement at the airports, for example, until 2018. We've requested another extension for a few more months from Homeland Security. Washington has an extension through the middle of next month, our neighbor to the north. 25 states are now compliant with the new requirement, which again, where does this new requirement come from? Oh, it's all based on the official story of 9/11. Which even the commissioners on the 9/11 Commission report, some resigned and said it's an underfunded farce and a disgrace to the American public. So if the people on the 9/11 Commission don't believe it, why the hell should you? I know, I like to keep it old school style, talking about 9/11 truth. It seems so quaint at this point in 2017, right? I was having private messages with somebody just the other day. I was like, oh my God, that's what makes me worry. And yes, makes me feel old because, of course, we're knocking on 40's door. That's what makes me worry about these kids today. They only know a post 9/11 world. They think all of this spying and lying and dying is totally normal. Par for the course. This is the way things are supposed to be, right? And it's all predicated on 9/11. So what we were talking about yesterday. You want to stop Trump? Look at 9/11. So that's our Oregon news as we begin this Cyberspace War episode of your Morning Monarchy. And again, I remind you, tell a friend about us. Tell a friend who might be getting sick of corporate media and friend face and phony political beliefs of the fair-weather friends. MediaMonarchy.com/listen. Tell them we stream Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. Music and news. No commercials. No ads. No agendas. Sorry, Adam and John. Pirate Bay founder says, we have lost the internet and now it's all about damage control. This is up on thenextweb.com. At its inception, the internet was a beautifully idealistic and equal place, but the world sucks and we've continually made it more and more centralized, taking power away from users and handing it over to big companies. Just as we've talked about even the physical devices, all your ports have all disappeared on all your machines. Because as Cryptagon said years ago, they want you to have a vending machine in your hand. Don't create, be sedate. It's like Jello Biafra said 30 years ago. And the worst thing is that we can't fix it. We can only make it slightly less awful. That's pretty much the core of Pirate Bay co-founders Peter Sun's talk at a tech festival, Brain Bar Budapest. So the Next Web sat down with the pessimistic activist and controversial figure to discuss how screwed we actually are when it comes to decentralizing the internet. In Sun's opinion, people focus on too much about what might happen instead of what is happening. He often questions about how a digitally bleak future could look like, but the truth is that we're living it. Quote, everything has gone wrong. That's the thing. It's not about what will happen in the future. It's about what's going on right now. We've centralized our data to a guy called Mark Zuckerberg, who's basically the biggest dictator in the world as he wasn't elected by anyone. Trump is basically in control over this data that Zuckerberg has, so I think we're already there. Everything that could go wrong has gone wrong, and I don't think there's a way for us to stop it. So there's some happy thoughts there from Peter. One of the most important things to realize is that the problem isn't a technological one. The internet was made to be decentralized, but we keep centralizing everything on top of it. To support this, Sun points out that in the last decade, almost every up-and-coming tech company or website has been bought by Amazon, Google, Apple, Microsoft, and Facebook, and I'll have further evidence of that throughout this episode. The ones that manage to escape the reach of the giants often end up adding to the centralization. We don't create things anymore. Instead, we just have virtual things. Uber, Airbnb. Do they have products? No. We went from this product-based model to virtual product to virtually no product whatsoever. This is the centralization process going on. Although we should be aware that the current effects of centralization, we shouldn't overlook that it's only going to get worse. There's a lot of upcoming tech-based services that are at risk of becoming centralized, which could have a huge impact on our daily lives. We're super happy about self-driving cars, but who owns the self-driving cars? Who owns the information about where they can and can't go? I don't want to ride in a self-driving car that can't drive me to a certain place because someone has bought or sold an illegal copy of something there. Sun firmly believes that this is a realistic scenario, as companies will always have to put their financial gains first before the needs of people and societies. That's why there needs to be a greater ethical discussion about technology and ownership if we don't want to end up living in this corporate-driven dystopia, worse than our corporate one, that is. So then they go on to talk about making a shitty situation slightly more tolerable. How do we do that? Feeling a bit optimistic, I asked Sun whether we could still fight for decentralization and bring the power back to the people. No. We lost this fight a long time ago. The only way we can do any difference is by limiting the power of these companies. By government stepping in. And there's the answer, my friends. Womp womp. But unfortunately, the EU or the US don't seem to have any interest in doing this. There's the sticky wicket. There's the answer. And it's the thing that our friends Ray Vahi and Apollo Slater have pointed out. It's a good critique of centralization, and his solution is government control of the internet. It's sold as anti-terrorism, but like everything else that's sold as anti-terrorism, it's mostly about controlling the pop. The only way we can do any difference is by limiting the power of these companies by governments stepping in. But unfortunately, the EU or the US don't seem to have any interest in doing this. Still, there's some chance for a less awful future, but it would require a huge political effort. However, in order to achieve that, the public needs to be informed about the need for decentralization, but historically, that's not likely to happen. I would say we, as the people, kind of lost the internet back to the capitalist society, which we were hoping to take it back from. We had this small opening of a decentralized internet, but we lost it by being naive. Talk about naivety. These companies try to sound good in order to take over that they're actually giving you something. Like Spotify gives you music and has a great passion for music and all the successful PR around it. But what it does to us in the long term is more like smoking. Big data and big tobacco are really similar in that sense. Before, we didn't realize how dangerous tobacco was, but now we know it gives you cancer. We didn't know that big data could be the thing, but now we know it is. We've been smoking all our lives on big data's products, and now we can't quit. That's quite the analogy. And just like with tobacco, it's governments that need to create the restrictions. So there's your answer from the founder of Pirate Bay, one of the most awesome long-running outposts. He says, we've lost the internet, it's all about damage control right now, and just says, let the government do it. File this under, I'm tired of being told who my heroes and who my villains are. No, Andy, I have not talked yet about the giant tunnels that Elon Musk wants to build under LA, where you drive your car onto a platform and it would shuttle you onto a track at 100 miles an hour. But I will talk about Elon Musk in a few minutes, about how they've joined the military. You're listening to The Morning Monarchy for Tuesday, June 13th, 2017. It is a Tech Tuesday. That means Cyberspace War. I'm your host, Webmaster DJ, and so very much more. James Evan Pilato from MediaMonarchy.com/listen. Two cybersecurity firms have uncovered malicious software that they believe caused a December 2016 Ukraine power outage, they said yesterday, warning the malware could easily be modified to harm critical infrastructure operations around the globe. ESET, E-S-E-T, a Slovakian antivirus software maker, and Dragos Incorporated, a U.S. critical infrastructure security firm, released detailed analyses of the malware known as Indestroyer. I like that. That could be like a cool metal band name. Or Crash Override. And that's the name of Indestroyer's first record. It looks like Industry and Destroyer. What's it called when you... Natalie Portmanteau. That's what it is. They issued private alerts to governments and infrastructure operators to help them defend against the threat. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security, Jawohl, said it was investigating the malware, though it had seen no evidence to suggest it had infected U.S. critical infrastructure, which will include places like Walmart, of course, when the poo-poo hits the oscillator. The two firms said they did not know who was behind the cyber attack. Ukraine blamed Russia, though officials in Moscow have repeatedly denied blame. Still, the firms warned that there could be more attacks using the same approach, either by the group that built the malware or the copycat effect, modifying the malicious software. The malware is really easy to repurpose and use against other targets. That's definitely alarming, says ESET malware researcher Robert Lipovsky in a telephone interview. This is coming from Reuters. And again, everything we say and play always included in the show notes. This could cause wide-scale damage to infrastructure systems that are vital. The Department of Homeland Security, I'll just say it every time that today, corroborated that warning, saying it was working better to better understand the threat posed by Crash Override. The tactics, techniques, and procedures described as part of the Crash Override malware could be modified to target U.S. critical information networks and systems. The alert posted some 36 technical indicators that a system had been compromised by Crash Override and asked firms to contact the agency if they suspected their systems were compromised. Dragos founder Robert M. Lee said the malware was capable of attacking power systems across Europe and could be leveraged against the U.S. with small modifications. It is able to cause outages of up to a few days in portions of a nation's grid, but is not potent enough to bring down an entire country's grid. So let's ask maybe the question that our buddy Mike in Philly asks. He's on the tweets at AFixJS. Why even internet connected in the first place? Power firms are concerned there will be more attacks. Alan Brill, a leader of Kroll's cybersecurity practice, of course related to Nick Kroll of the League, and Jules Kroll of 9/11 infamy, his dad. You're dealing with very smart people who come up with something and deployed it. It represents a risk to power distribution organizations everywhere. Indestroyer is only the second piece of malware uncovered to date that is capable of disrupting industrial processes without the need for hackers to manually intervene. The first, Stuxnet, was discovered in 2010 and is widely believed, it was just used by the United States and Israel to attack Iran's nuclear program. You forget the part where they created it to attack Iran's nuclear program in just a stunning move of complete insanity. Cyber firms warn of malware that could cause power outages because they were foolish enough to put the power grid on the internet in the first place. So we're all going to kind of get what we deserve. Now, I'd never actually said the word, and I'd never actually heard anyone say it. like a lot of things, we just sort of read a lot of it all. And definitely for myself, anytime things reach the just ridiculous proportion of every single person's talking about it, that sort of Pokemon kind of effect, I leave it like the plague. But now, Representative Mike Quigley, Democrat of Illinois, introduced legislation Monday to classify presidential social media posts, including President Trump's much-discussed tweets, as presidential records. The Communications Over Various Feeds Electronically for Engagement COVFEFE Act, which has the same acronym as an infamous Trump Twitter typo last month, which would amend the Presidential Records Act to include social media. Presidential records must be preserved according to the Presidential Records Act, which would make it potentially illegal for the president to delete tweets.
The White House has already promised to preserve all of President Donald Trump's infamous tweets, including those he had deleted. Democratic Representative Mike Quigley of Illinois wants to make sure the White House follows through. Quigley, who represents parts of Chicago, introduced the Communications Over Various Feeds Electronically for Engagement Act, designed to amend the Presidential Records Act to categorize social media posts as official presidential communications that must be preserved for posterity. The bill's acronym is CONFEFE, which refers to the president's mysterious May 31st deleted tweet that used a made-up word. Most observers believe Trump was simply misspelling the word coverage. Like most matters presidential, Trump's use of Twitter is a subject of much controversy, especially after Spicer said last week that Trump's tweets should be regarded as official statements of policy.
Speaking of tweet controversies, I kind of forgot about this and didn't put it on my news stack. I got into a little bit of tweet controversies last night, as I am apt to do. Man, those thin-skinned celebrities, they sure can dish out the bullshit, but boy, they can't take it at all. Triggered. Oh, it's funny. It's funny. Moby and Roseanne. Trying to come at Media Monarchy? Bring it, fools. Maybe we'll talk about more of that on Friday. Media Memes edition. Just right now, it's the Tech Tuesday edition of your Morning Monarchy. Glad you're here. We are streaming live at MediaMonarchy.com/listen. The May Day SpaceX launch of a classified satellite mission was considered very unusual after amateur satellite watchers realized it was being put into the same orbit as the International Space Station. We now know that not only was USA 276 put into the same orbit, but it actually buzzed the ISS as it gradually orbited around the space station. There's a simulation from the SatTrackCam blog showing the new spy satellite just outside the box, representing the safe distance for objects to pass near the International Space Station without an orbital avoidance maneuver. I'm sorry, that's orbital avoidance maneuver. Over time, the spy satellite then circled the ISS just several kilometers away. This does not happen by accident. To accomplish this, you have to launch the satellite into a precise orbit with the same altitude and inclination angle with the equator. Then you have to use onboard propulsion to fine-tune the orbit and catch up to the ISS. To then orbit the ISS at a safe distance is even trickier. So, what could this classified mission of USA 276 be? The most logical explanation from Dr. Roy Spencer is that the DoD is testing a capability to rendezvous with and spy on spy satellites up close and personal. Such a capability would no doubt include high-resolution images, electronic surveillance, and whatever else they can think of to investigate other countries' spy satellites and better figure out what they're doing up there. Spy satellites to spy on spy satellites, which really only makes sense. Now, you guys have been talking about Elon Musk for the last several minutes over in the chat, so now let's reach the part where Musk's SpaceX joins the military. It wasn't long ago when SpaceX founder Elon Musk cracked what he once labeled a monopoly for the Defense Department space launches, successfully breaking into a business that was dominated by United Launch Alliance, LLC. The DoD's appetite for space destruction access is voracious, given the myriad reconnaissance, defense, and communication roles there, coupled with a future where conflicts are almost certain to involve space assets. Musk's 2014 lawsuit against the government was settled out of court, and the Pentagon certified SpaceX, also known as Space Exploration Technologies Corp., as a suitable supplier of military space launches. SpaceX's first gig for the military was on May Day, May 1st, always a highly symbolic day, when it launched a satellite for the National Reconnaissance Office, that place that was running drills about hijacked jets crashing into government buildings on 9/11. Just one of the places that was doing that. But in a quite public sense, Musk and the government this summer will test the theory that cheaper space launches are suitable for sensitive military missions. In August, SpaceX will carry one of the Pentagon's premier yet highly classified platforms into orbit, the X-37B spycraft, an unmanned miniature version of the space shuttle. Logs missions that are well over a year in length. The most recent X-37B sojourn ended in May after more than 700 days circling the Earth. Actually, as long as we're talking about tweet controversies, the most tweet fun we've had in the last day or so, our friend Swagger Prance gave us a picture that said, if the Earth was really flat, cats would have already knocked everything off of it. Circling the Earth. Can't believe you still believe in cats. Boeing has built two of the craft, which first launched in 2010. The August blastoff will be the program's fifth flight. One major reason for SpaceX's appeal to Pentagon brass? Sticker price. With its launches starting around $61 million, Musk's company has been able to undercut its more established rival, the aforementioned United Launch Alliance, a Centennial, Colorado-based joint venture of Boeing and Lockheed Martin. They boast an unblemished record of more than 100 launches, but it's still working to bring its cost below $100 million. It plans to do so by 2019. On Friday, ULA's president and chief executive Salvatore Tony Bruno said on Twitter that his company wanted to compete for the X-37B launch but wasn't given a chance to do it. No, we were not given the opportunity to bid. ULA remains fully committed to continuing its support to America's national security, blah, 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 bling, blang, bloom.
The U.S. Air Force is teaming up with SpaceX to launch the military branch's secretive unmanned spaceplane. Air Force Secretary Heather Wilson announced June 8th that SpaceX had been selected to launch the X-37B unmanned spaceplane on its fifth mission to orbit. A Falcon 9 rocket will be used to send one of the Air Force's two X-35Bs to space. These reusable craft, also known as the Orbital Test Vehicle, have circled Earth for a combined 2,085 days on 4 previous flights. To win the contract, SpaceX beat out United Launch Alliance, a joint venture between Boeing and Lockheed Martin, demonstrating the increased trust the U.S. military places in the upstart aerospace company. Because the X-37B program is largely confidential, the financial terms of the SpaceX deal were not revealed.
Now, as at least one place, and I'm sure probably many others, have mentioned alongside this story, places like Activism Media, they're sorry to announce SpaceX joins the military industry complex. We no longer support any Elon Musk-related products. And again, like our buddy Ray Vahi says, sad, but can't say that we're too surprised about any of this. You're listening to The Morning Monarchy. It's the Tech Tuesday edition. And now we get into the murders and executions. I mean, mergers and acquisitions. However, in this case, those terms might all be interchangeable. SoftBank Group is taking over Google parent Alphabet's robot dreams, buying Boston Dynamics to pursue a future when more machines intermingle with humans. As part of the transaction with Alphabet, SoftBank also agreed to buy Japanese bipedal robotics company Shaft. Damn right. SCHAFT. Terms of the deal were not disclosed. Boston Dynamics, which you might know from their horrific videos showing our robot future. They were bought by Google in 2013 as part of a robotics acquisition spree, made its name with a series of 2- and 4-legged machines that are able to stay upright even when pushed or kicked or traversing rocky terrain. Videos of the robots, known for their animal-like movements, are popular on YouTube. Says this article from Japan Times. Yeah, they're popular, but have you looked at the comments? Everyone says, God help us all. Why are we creating these? We're creating our own destruction. While SoftBank has already made investments in robotics, those efforts have yet to deliver hit or payoffs. That may change with this new deal. Boston Dynamics is seen as the best in the world. said Tomatako Takahashi, a University of Tokyo associate professor and founder of RoboGarage. While there might be some concerns whether it might be difficult to work with the geniuses as Boston Dynamic, he said, it'll be interesting to see what they come up with when they're free to conduct research. It wasn't clear whether Boston Dynamics would remain within SoftBank or become a part of the Vision Fund, the $93 billion technology investment fund started by SoftBank founder Masayoshi Son. The fund will allow the billionaire to cut even more ambitious deals than he's been able to do with his highly leveraged company. The Vision Fund already has the right to acquire 25% of SoftBank's holdings in ARM Holdings, OneWeb, U.S.-based online lender Social Finance, and U.S. chipmaker NVIDIA. This would be Son's second venture into robotics. Now, just like Facebook, just like Microsoft, and just like Google, you got to know that a lot of times they just buy up their competition. You know, it kind of reminds me of that TV show that we all like when Homer starts Hypercompute Global Meganet. Who comes to visit? Bill Gates. He wants to buy out the company. And how does he buy out the company? He wrecks it. He didn't get where he was writing out a bunch of checks. I was just even thinking the other day, how many services have you enjoyed only to discover they get bought up and then they let them die on the vine? Because major, gigantic corporations, whether you're talking about computers or TV or music or any of it, food, the big boys don't have the ideas. All they have are the capital that they can tease and tease and tease and make people sell out. So they don't compete. They just buy up their competition. Did you ever use something called Songza? It's kind of a neat music service that basically had curated set lists that were like, oh, if you're in the mood for this or that, or what time is it? Are you biking? Are you napping? Are you cooking? Are you working? Here's a cool playlist for that. Google bought it, and they killed it. They just absorbed it into their giant Google Play maw. So I can't help but wonder if Google is selling off Boston Dynamics, is it because it might be a dog?
Why is SoftBank buying this company?
So Google's been trying to get rid of this company for quite some time, and for them, they really needed a marketable product in the near future. Now, SoftBank doesn't have that kind of pressure. It has a ton of cash. Masa said before that he's trying to create a 300-year plan. So there's plenty of time for a company like Boston Robotics to come up with their go-to-market strategy.
But how does this fit into SoftBank's strategy and what SoftBank actually does?
This actually isn't SoftBank's first robotic product. A few years ago, they acquired a French company, a robotics company, and they unveiled Pepper a few years later. And it's a sort of humanoid robot that's supposed to read emotion, it's supposed to be social. It hasn't done that well in the market. There's some 10,000 out there in the market now, mostly in Japan. So we don't know if the team at Boston Dynamics is going to be folded into that, if it's going to fit into these Pepper ambitions, or if it's going to be something separate. But it's not completely out of the blue for SoftBank.
George, what do you make of this?
I'm not surprised at all. SoftBank is looking to build its portfolio in robotics. I see them looking to invest in robotic startups across the entire valley. I know that Google was looking to part with it, and Google's just looking to basically focus in artificial intelligence, just like we are looking to focus in artificial intelligence and healthcare by investing in Freenome, our portfolio company. So it makes sense that SoftBank will be doing this.
The fact that they've raised almost $100 billion, how does that change the competitive landscape in VC, as a VC yourself?
I don't see them investing in very early stage companies. I see them basically making later stage investments.
Could they, though, contribute to a blowing up bubble? A bubble that might be forming by supporting companies that maybe shouldn't be supported?
Well, I think there is already a blowing up bubble, and everyone's contributing to it.
I think it's interesting to hear your perspective. I've talked to some investors who are maybe not so lax in their response. They're a little frustrated that SoftBank's making such large investments, that it's kind of like the tourist investors that came in a few years ago, the hedge funds, the mutual funds, and that things were finally starting to calm down. And now SoftBank's here at the $100 billion, and it's making everything complicated all over again. Are you seeing that at all?
I'm seeing it at the later stages of my companies and other companies, and they kind of show up and they say, hey, we're interested in what your company's doing. Can you talk to us about it? And they do some talking, and then they talk about doing some investing, but they're doing a lot of scanning of the ecosystem. So they're gathering a lot of information.
Interesting.
So they're definitely paying attention to the entire world of robotics.
Where did you get this? The alternative media, Jerry. That's where you hear the truth.
You're listening to Media Monarchy with James Evan Pilato.
You sure are listening to Media Monarchy, and I'm damn glad of it, too. Our friend Citizens Gateway points out in the chat, this is a lot of what it comes down to. They absorb the patents and throw the skeleton in the ocean. That's how it goes. Let's continue to look at some of the murders and executions going on in cyberspace war. Pandora is raising cash to help it take on Spotify and other streaming music services. Pardon my editorial guffaw. The online music service is selling a 19% stake in its business to satellite radio company Sirius XM. Oh, these are all really great, strong players in this game, right? For $480 million. Pandora will pay a $22.5 million breakup fee. Whew, that's pretty steep. It's a private equity firm, KKR. There they are, right in there, elbowing in. Like Don Cheadle told us in House of Lies, it's all about getting them on the teat for afterwork. Pandora will pay $22.5 million breakup fee to KKR for breaking up a previously agreed $150 million deal. Pandora, which is based in Oakland, California, will raise another $200 million selling Ticketfly to Eventbrite. Pandora bought Ticketfly for $450 million in 2015, which was right about the part where their service got worse and the prices increased. Ticketfly is used by several of the cool, smaller clubs here in Portland. Speaking of, I actually just used Ticketfly last night because I discovered that band White Reaper, they're playing here next week. The world's best American bands? Stoked. Sidebar. Pandora works as an internet radio, and most users listen for free. But its financial losses have deepened in the past few years, while its user base has been stagnant. And in March, it launched a subscription service that copied the strategy of Spotify and Apple. Like those apps, it can now charge users and let them pick the songs they want to listen to? Holy moly, call the news. Sirius will be able to pick 3 people for Pandora's board, one of whom will be chairman. Most of Sirius's listeners are in cars, little metal coffins. And by investing in Pandora, it gets entry into the digital radio business. Analysts say there are opportunities for 2 companies to collaborate and bundle products. Pandora Media Incorporated shares rose 10% or 1.2% to close on Friday at $8.52. We're going to tell you in just a few minutes how pretty much all of these tech companies are dragging the entire phony baloney casino stock market down. Shares in New York-based SiriusXM Holdings Incorporated dipped 20% on this news.
SiriusXM is investing in the streaming music service Pandora. The satellite radio company announced a $480 million strategic investment. Now, the move gives Pandora a boost of cash to help it compete in the crowded streaming music space against the likes of Spotify and Apple. Pandora recently announced an autoplay feature for its $10 a month premium service that infinitely plays songs similar to the last thing you listen to. The deal also allows SiriusXM to now play in the streaming music world and will give Sirius around 16% ownership of Pandora. The company was once rumored to potentially buy Pandora outright. Now, Pandora was one of the first platforms to make audio streaming popular to consumers, but its strict licensing agreements has limited you from picking the exact song you want to listen to. Other services let you do this, and it slowed Pandora's growth.
Wow, infinite repetition. That's a great idea. Sure is, says the chat. Now, I joke often about Sirius and XM. They were 2 companies that were both failing, and they were never going to survive. That's why they merged. This looks like a bunch of failing companies shuffling their deck chairs on the Titanic. And then what's going to happen? Nerd, nerd, here comes Alphabet. We'll buy all you up. Now, I always found Pandora to be a terrible service. You might know me as a bit of a music aficionado. Pandora was just always such a terrible service. No matter what it plugged in, it was like, oh, you like Death Cab for Cutie, huh? How about I play that? Yeah, or 24/7, 365, Tom Petty. Yeah, I had that job back at the commercial radio station. I left because I wanted to work for you. I'm James Evan Pilato from MediaMonarchy.com. Okay, confession time. I logged in to FriendFace over the weekend, and I only did it breaking my I think we deactivated it last summer, August, right after I collected my birthday love. I logged into FriendFace because it was the only way that I had communicated with Brent DeBoer, our friend from the Dandy Warhols. They actually had a couple of shows here this weekend, and it was a big roast festival weekend here in Oregon, so they had a couple of shows, all ages and late shows. So I was just trying to get in touch with Fathead DeBoer, but he never wrote me back. So I downloaded my Facebook archive, as they offer, and deactivated it again. They said, "Oh, what's wrong? We hate to see you go." I said, "Yeah, you're terrible. Good luck on running for president." Mark Sugarcube Facebook is famous for pushing technological boundaries with its innovations. And by innovations, we mean buying up other companies, absorbing the patents, and throwing the body in the ocean. You know, like they did to Osama. But its latest inventions may well leave worried users hitting the dislike button. Ha ha ha. A patent filed and approved by the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office details how the emotions of a Facebook user could be predicted based on characteristics of a keyboard input. Put simply, the firm would read a person's emotions based on speed and pressure of how they tap the keys. The patent, entitled Augmenting Text Messages with Emotion Information, proposes that features can be added to text that reflect the feelings of the sender. And we know what the feelings of senders are on Facebook. This actually makes me feel depressed and sad. And those are the times that Facebook isn't actually manipulating your timeline to make you feel depressed and sad. You know, you remember that test, that experiment they ran a couple of years ago? We wanted to see if we could make you depressed. And we could. And it's working pretty well. So we go from FriendFace now to Crapple. Chinese authorities have said they've uncovered a massive underground operation involving the sale of Apple users' personal data. 22 people have been detained on suspicion of infringing individuals' privacy and illegally obtaining their digital personal information, according to a statement last Wednesday from police in the southern Zhejiang province. Of the 22 suspects, 20 were employees of Apple's direct domestic sales company and outsourcing company. The suspects allegedly used an internal company computer system to gather users' names, phone numbers, Apple IDs, and other data, which they sold as part of a scam worth more than 50 million yuan. That's 7.36 million U.S. fiat phony dollars. The statement referred to domestic employees of Apple, but it was unclear whether they were directly employed by the company or by Apple suppliers or vendors. It also did not specify whether the data belonged to Chinese or foreign Apple customers. So China uncovers a massive underground network of Apple employees illegally selling customers' personal data. But as our buddy Brock West noted, because Apple itself would never sell your data to anyone. Wink, wink, know what I mean? Nudge, nudge.
Chinese authorities have announced the detaining of individuals linked to an underground network selling iPhone users' personal data. On June 7th, police in Zhejiang province said they detained 22 people, including 20 from Apple direct sales outlets and companies that Apple outsources services to. The detained individuals used Apple's internal system to obtain information associated with iPhone products. The network gathered usernames, phone numbers, Apple IDs, and other data to sell to Chinese black market vendors. The Verge reported the information sold totaled 50 million yuan, or roughly 7.36 million US dollars. Currently, it is unknown if the data gathered by the underground network is from only Chinese Apple users or other worldwide users. The Wall Street Journal said iPhone user information is highly prized on the black market due to the belief the individuals attached to the information are more affluent.
Now, there's also, those employees are not to be confused with the sweatshop employees with a giant suicide rate for building our fondle slabs. Finally, here on your Cyberspace Wars Tech Tuesday edition of your Morning Monarchy, Apple shares added to last week's drop on Monday to lead to a market downturn, I should say. Still the best performing S&P 500 sector this year, succumbed under its own weight. Wall Street falls as Apple drags tech shares lower.
Investors selling off tech stocks for a second straight session Monday. High flyers like Apple, Amazon, and Microsoft dragging the Nasdaq down for its biggest two-day loss since September. Investors were picking up beaten-down stocks instead, like industrials and energy. Kevin Mon of Henyon and Walsh.
Well, there's a lot of uncertainty right now, and I think tech is just the first place where investors may be getting a little edgy given the valuations.
Apple led the way south. Mizuho Securities downgraded the iPhone maker's shares to neutral from buy and cut its price target. General Electric shares rallied after the industrial conglomerate said Jeff Immelt would be replaced in August as CEO by its healthcare head, John Flannery. Immelt had sold off a lot of businesses, but failed to deliver the profit growth some investors had expected. Oil stocks like Chesapeake Energy and Marathon Oil shot higher after oil prices rose. A source says Uber CEO Travis Kalanick is likely to take a leave of absence from the ride-hailing company. No final decision has been made. Tech shares in Europe suffer their biggest sell-off since last year's Brexit referendum, pulling the major indexes down.
In other news, the Bluth Company, they've been upgraded to don't buy. There you have it, my friends. There's your Cyberspace War edition of your Morning Monarchy. That's all the news that's fit to be uploaded to the tubes. And again, everything we say and play always included in the show notes. And in addition to the dozen or so stories we just talked about, there's all the other stories using hashtag Cyberspace War that we did not discuss. There's a lot of sticky wickets. There's a lot of powder kegs sitting around. Our buddy Head in the chat just noted, yeah, we haven't had a major financial crisis for a while. Are they setting us up for another? If you've got tech news, if you've got space stories, inner space or outer space, love to share those. Cyberspace War is the hashtag. We're going to go out with brand new music from the little side project collab that calls themselves Tuxedo. That's Mayor Hawthorne and Jake One. Second time around from Tuxedo coming up in just a few minutes. But let's take our always important look at this day in history. June 13th, 1886. A fire pretty much destroys Vancouver, British Columbia on this day. June 13th, 1893. Grover Cleveland notices a rough spot in his mouth and on July 1st undergoes secret, successful surgery to remove a large cancerous portion of his jaw. The operation was not revealed to the public until 1917, nearly a decade after the president's death. That's pretty grody. June 13th, 1927, aviator Charles Lindbergh receives a ticker tape parade down Fifth Avenue in New York City. He would go on to, of course, praise Hitler. as many others were, of course, funding him, like the Wall Streets and the old boys. June 13th, 1966, the United States Supreme Court rules in Miranda v. Arizona that the police must inform suspects of their rights before questioning them. Now, I always distinctly recall, the whole encounter and event is pretty much imprinted on my brain, when I got arrested for a gram of marijuana in Frederick, Maryland back in May of 1998. They didn't read me my rights. I distinctly recall them not reading my rights, because of course it's like a TV. It's like you're in a TV show suddenly. They cuffed me, they put you in the car, they put your head they put their hand on your head, oh, watch your head, don't hit your head getting in. That whole thing, it's all pretty much played out exactly like that. Except they didn't read me my Miranda rights, and playing on the radio when I got in the car was a band called The Police. Good stuff. I gotta get that mugshot. Actually, anybody know anything about getting expunged records from the state of Maryland? I'd love to see my mugshot from May 1998. Big ol' smile. June 13th, 1970. The Long and Winding Road becomes the Beatles' last U.S. #1 song. June 13th, 1971. The Old Gray Lady begins publication of the Pentagon Papers.
WikiLeaks caused an uproar when it posted U.S. government secrets online, but that's nothing compared to what happened when the New York Times printed the Pentagon Papers. Exactly 40 years later, 46. The complete file was released today. Here's David Martin.
If you've got the time, the National Archives has the documents. All 7,000 pages of the Pentagon Papers fully and finally declassified. Never mind that the great bulk of the Pentagon's top-secret history of the Vietnam War has been available for decades, beginning with the most famous leak in history by the most famous whistleblower.
I can no longer cooperate in concealing this information from the American public.
Daniel Ellsberg then, Daniel Ellsberg today saying his only regret is that he wasted nearly 2 years after reading the papers before he leaked them.
That made me believe that what I was involved in Vietnam was not a noble cause that had gone wrong. It was unjustified homicide.
In 1967, then Defense Secretary Robert McNamara ordered one of his so-called whiz kids, Morton Halperin, to set up a task force to conduct an encyclopedic study of the Vietnam War.
We interpreted what he wanted as wanting to learn the lessons of how we had gotten in the hopes that they would help other people in the future avoid the perils of what had gotten us into the war.
Halperin is one of a handful of people who have read the entire 47-volume study.
What was startling was how clear it was that at critical moments, various administrations had lied to the American people.
Halperin, who had recruited Ellsberg to work on just a portion of the project, knew exactly what would happen if he got his hands on the whole thing.
If you give it to him, he will make it public. He's against the war. He's determined to do anything he can to stop the war.
Ellsberg Xeroxed copies at night and gave them to newspapers, beginning with the New York Times. Now it is all online.
It is convenient. They have all the footnotes now. I had removed the footnotes with the scissors when I gave them to the press.
So what took so long? Well, with something like 400 million documents waiting to be declassified, the government finally got around to it.
So that's actually a 6-year-old clip from the Columbia Broadcasting System. This day in history, the limited Hangout papers were published. Ellsberg, the proto-Snowden. Continuing to look at this day in history, June 13th, 1977, convicted MLK assassin James Earl Ray is recaptured after escaping from prison 3 days before. June 13th, 1983, Pioneer 10 becomes the first man-made object to leave the central solar system when it passes beyond the orbit of Neptune. Oh, this is also the part now where Frankie's crawling all over my desk. Almost done. You got 8 more minutes. June 13th, 1983. No, we already did that one. Frank, you're distracting me. June 13th, 1994, a jury in Anchorage, Alaska blames recklessness by Exxon and Captain Joseph Hazelwood for the Exxon Valdez disaster, allowing victims of the oil spill to seek $15 billion in damages. Just because you're allowed to seek that doesn't mean you're going to get it. Just because you made it on the game show doesn't mean you're going to win all the prizes. June 13th, 1996, the Montana Freemen surrender after an 81-day standoff with FBI agents. I've said this many, many times. I said it during the Bush administration when we were doing this show, and I said it during the Obama administration when we were doing this show, and I'll say it during the Trump administration while we've been doing this show. When phony Republicans are in power, the enemy is over there. And then when the fake Democrats are here, the enemy's at home. Ooh, they're lone known wolf terrorists, militias hiding under every rock and pickup truck. So that was 96. That was during the Clinton years. It was all go, 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 militias, homegrown terror. Then Bush comes in and the enemy's over there. Of course, after the catalyzing catastrophic events of 9/11. 1 year later, June 13th, 1997, just to maybe drive this point home, a jury sentences Timothy McVeigh to death for his part in the 1995 Oklahoma City bombing. Nothing about Elohim City or any of that, sorry. June 13th, 2000, President Kim Dae-jung of South Korea meets Kim Jong-il of North Korea for the beginning of the first ever Inter-Korea Summit in the northern capital of Pyongyang. Pyongyang is in the room. June 13th, 2002, the United States withdraws from the Anti-Ballistic Missile Treaty. June 13th, 2010, a capsule of the Japanese spacecraft Hayabusa containing particles of the asteroid 25143, Itokawa, returns to Earth. And 2 years ago today, June 13th, 2015, a man opens fire at policemen outside the police headquarters in Dallas, Texas, while a bag containing a pipe bomb is also found. He is, of course, later shot dead by the cops. Published to my own website, MediaMonarchy.com, not to Facebook and not to Weibo or any other horrible social media place. It's my own website. Now, if I could just get a handle on the tubes. RIAA uses local cops in Oregon raid. That came from Slashdot. Fake cops employed by the recording industry of America started acting like real cops a while ago. RIAA uses local cops in Oregon raid uncivil liberties. A thriller following a Homeland Security agent who begins to question how effective her role in the war of terror has been. Uncivil Liberties, a film. China threatens war escalation over Bush handshake, as the formerly good PJW noted in an astounding development that has completely failed to register any attention among mainstream U.S. media. China promised to escalate preparations for a war after a Bush handshake. Fourth and final story published to MediaMonarchy.com a decade ago today. Army admits dumping chemical weapons at sea. Celebrating birthdays today, June 13th, W.B. Yeats, Basil Rathbone, Dorothy Sayers, Ralph Edwards of This Is Your Life, Paul Lynde, and it's also Christo's birthday, the creator of Killer Umbrellas. Bobby Freeman of Do You Want to Dance, Malcolm McDowell's birthday. It's also Ban Ki-moon's birthday. Whitley Strieber, Tim Allen, Ali Sheedy, David Gray, Laura Keitlinger, Jamie Walters from 90210, Rivers Cuomo from Beverly Hills, Ethan Embry, Chris Evans, Kat Dennings, Ashley Olsen, and Mary-Kate Olsen, and DJ Snake. Those are all pretty much a bunch of lame, all mainstream people. I don't think we'll hear from any of them in our daily DJ set at noon. Thankfully, right now, we're going to go out with brand new music from a little band called Tuxedo. It's Mayor Hawthorne and Jake Wan. It's their collab. Their latest record, appropriately titled 2, is out on the awesome Stone's Throw record. So we're going to listen to Second Time Around from Tuxedo to take us out on this Morning Monarchy episode. I know I'm still getting some messages from people who have said, man, what's the deal with the show? I'm having server woes. I'm trying to work it out. The show's stream live here at MediaMonarchy.com/listen. We replay it at 2 p.m. Pacific time. Radio Confluence carries it live, and I've been putting them all up on YouTube. Sometimes I have to chop out the song. I chopped out the Death from Above song yesterday. I can only keep doing this with your support, and I appreciate it. Did somebody slip me some caffeine this morning? That's your Cyberspace War edition of your Tech Tuesday Morning Monarchy, June 13th, 2017. I am James Evan Pilato from MediaMonarchy.com, thanking you so much for listening. Bottom of my heart, reminding you, as always, don't hate the media, become the media. Take care.
Second time around, hey, second time around. Second time around, oh, second time around. Second time around, hey, second time around. Second time around, oh. Second time around, hey, second time around. Second time around, oh, second time around. Second time around, hey, second time around. Second time around, oh, second time around. Ooh, I think it's gonna be better. Oh, the second time around, second time around. I think it's gonna be better. We can work it out, we can work it out. Oh, I'm up to super sensation from the second I laid eyes on you. Never gave in to temptation, cause I didn't wanna lose my cool. When the sparks came through, nothing we could do, but that aftershock was much too strong. If we start as friends, build it up again, maybe we can make it through a longer lasting brand new. I think it's gonna be better the second time around, second time around. I think it's gonna be better. We can work it out, we can work it out. I think it's gonna be better. Oh, the second time around, second time around. I think it's gonna be better. We can work it out, we can work it out. Oh, I had my standard rotation. I was satisfied to get back to. Forget about our relation. Keep it pushing down the avenue. Then a late night call mixed with alcohol, reconnected right where we left off. If we start as friends, build it up again, maybe we can make it through a longer lasting brand new. I think it's gonna be better the second time around, second time around. I think it's gonna be better. We can work it out. second time around. Second time around, hey, second time around. Second time around, oh, second time around. I think it's gonna be better the second time around. Second time around. Oh, I think it's gonna be better. We can work it out. We can work it out. Oh.
You're listening to Media Monarchy with James Evan Pilato. Since 2005, Media Monarchy has covered the real news about politics, health, technology, and the occult, all remixed with music and media that matters. Go to MediaMonarchy.com/support and become a monthly subscriber so you can help keep independent, non-commercial, alternative media going and growing. Thanks.